Beowulf spake, the son of Ecgtheow. Lo, my friend, Unferth, flushed with drink, thou hast spent much speech, telling of Breca and his feat. Truth, I account it that greater prowess in the sea had I, more labor in the waves than any other man. We two agreed, being boys, and made our vaunt, being yet both in the youth of life, that we would hazard our lives out upon the ocean, and that we accomplished even so. Naked we held our swords, hard in our hands. When we two rode the sea, we thought thus to defend us against monstrous fish. Never at all could he swim away from me afar upon the streaming waves, more swift than I upon the deep. From him I would not go. Then we two were together in the sea 5 nights' space, until the tide drove us asunder, and the boiling waters, the coldest of storms, glooming night, a wind from the north came with cruel onslaught against us. Rough were the waves, the hearts of the fishes of the sea were stirred, and there the corslet on my flesh, links stoutly wrought by hand, gave me aid against my foes. My woven raiment of battle lapped my breast, adorned with gold. To the abyss drew me a destroying foe accursed, fast the grim thing held me in its gripe. None the less it was granted to me to find that fell slayer with point of warlike sword. The battle's onset destroyed that strong beast of the sea through this my hand. Thus many a time deadly assailants menaced me grievously. With my beloved sword I ministered to them as it was meet. In no wise had they joy in that banqueting, foul doers of ill deeds, that they should devour me sitting round and feast nigh to the bottoms of the sea. Nay, upon the morrow they lay upon the shore in the flotsam of the waves, wounded with sword thrusts, by blades done to death, so that never thereafter might they about the steep straits molest the passage of seafaring men. Light came from the east, God's beacon bright. The waves were lulled, so that I could descry the headlands, out to sea and windy cliffs. Fade off saveth a man not doomed to die, when his valor fails not. Howbeit, it was my lot with sword to slay 9 sea demons. Never have I heard beneath the vault of heaven of more bitter fighting by night, nor of a man more unhappy in the torrents of the sea, and none the less from the grappling of accursed creatures my life I saved, weary of my venture. Then the sea, the tide upon the flood, with boiling waters swept me away to the land of the Finns. Never have I heard men tell of thee any such cruel deeds of war and dreadful work of swords, Breca, never yet in the play of battle. Nay, neither of you twain hath accomplished so daring a deed with blood-stained blades. Yet little do I glory in it. Not thou, though, wert the slayer of thine own brethren, thy nearest kin, for that thou shalt in hell suffer damnation. Thou thy wit be good, I tell thee for a truth, son of Ecglaf, that never would Grendel have achieved so many a deed of horror, fierce slayer and dire, in thy lord's despite, humbling him in Heorot, if they heart and soul were thus fell in war, as thou thyself accountest. Nay, he hath found that he need not greatly dread avenging wrath, nor dire pursuit of swords from your people of the conquering Scyldings. Force toll he levies, none he spares of the folk of the Danes, but followeth his lust, slays and ravishes, for no vengeance, looking from the Spear Danes. But I shall now ere long in battle oppose to him the might and valor of the Geats. He will return who may triumphant to the mead. When the light of the morning on the following day, the sun in skyey robes shines from the south over the children of men, then in joyful hour was the giver of rich gifts, gray-haired, bold in battle, prince of the glorious Danes. He believed that succor was at hand. Shepherd of his people, he had discerned in Beowulf's words the moveless purpose of his mind. There was laughter of mighty men, the din of singing. Sweet were the words. Well, Theow went forth, Hrothgar's queen, mindful of courtesy, with gold adorned she greeted the men in the hall. And then the cup she offered, noble lady, first to the guardian of the East Dane's realm, and wished him joy at the ale quaffing and his liege's love. He, king victorious, in delight partook of feast and flowing bowl. Then the lady of the Hemlings went to and fro to every part of that host, to tried men and young proffering the jeweled vessels, until in due time it chanced that she, ring-laden queen of courteous heart, to Beowulf bore the cup of mead, and held the Geatish knight, and gave thanks to God in words of wisdom that her desire was granted her, that she might trust in any man for comfort in their miseries. That cup he then received, grim warrior, at Wealhtheow's hand, and thereupon his heart being kindled with desire of battle fair words he said, thus Beowulf, son of Ecgtheow, spake, this did I purpose when I went up upon the sea, and sat me in my sea boat amid my company of knights, that I wholly would accomplish the desire of your people, or would fall among the slain fast in the clutches of the foe. A deed of knightly valor I shall achieve, or else in this mead hall await my latest day. These words well pleased that my lady, the proud utterance of the Geat, with gold adorned, she went, fair queen of the people, to her seat beside her lord. Then again, as before, were valiant words spoken within the hall. The host was in joyful hour. There was clamor of folk triumphant, until on a sudden the son of Healfdene desired to seek his nightly couch. He knew that onslaught against that lofty hall had been purposed in the demon's heart from the hours when they could see the light of the sun, until darkling night and the shapes of mantling shadow came gliding over the world. Dark beneath the clouds all the host arose. Then man saluted man, Hrothgar and Beowulf, all hail the king him wished, giving to him the keeping of his house of wine, and this word he spake, never have I erst this since I could lift hand and shield to any other man, save thee here, and now entrusted the mighty dwelling of the Danes. Have it now, and hold it, fairest of houses, remember thy renown, show forth thy might and valor, keep watch against our foes, no lack shall there be to thee of thy desires, if thou dost achieve this deed of valor, and yet live. Then Hrothgar departed, defending the Scyldings, with his company of knights forth from the hall. Their warrior lord would follow, Wealhtheow his queen as the companion of his couch. The king of glory, as men now heard, had appointed one to guard the hall against Grendel, now a special office he held in the service of the Danes, having taken on himself a watch against monstrous things. Verily the Geatish knight trusted confidently in his valiant strength, God's grace to him. Then his corslet of iron things he doffed, and the helm from his head, and gave his jeweled sword, best of iron-wrought things, to his esquire, and bade him have care of his gear of battle. Then the brave man spake, Beowulf of the Geats, a speech of proud words, ere he climbed upon his bed. No whit do I account myself in the warlike stature of a man more despicable in deeds of battle than Grendel doth himself. Therefore I will not with sword give him the sleep of death, although I well could. Naught doth he know of gentle arms, that he should wield weapon against me, or hew my shield. Fierce though he be in savage deeds, nay, we too shall this night reject the battle, if he dare have recourse to warfare without weapons. And then let the foreseeing God, the Holy Lord, adjudge the glory to whichever side him seemeth meet. Then he laid him down, that valiant man, and his face was buried in the pillow at his cheek. And about him many a gallant rover stretched upon his couch within the hall. None of them believed that he would ever return to the sweetness of his home, to the strong places of the free people where he was nurtured. Nay, they had learned that a bloody death had ere now in that hall of wine swept away all too many of the Danish folk. Yet God granted them a victorious fortune in battle, even to those Geatish warriors, yea, succor and aid, that they, through the prowess of one and through his single might, overcame their enemy. Manifest is this truth, that mighty God hath ruled the race of men through all the ages. There came, in darkling night passing, a shadow walking. The spearman slept, whose duty was to guard the gabled hall. All except one. Well known it was to men that, if God willed it not, the robber fiend no power had to drag them to the shades. But he there wakeful in his foes' despite abode, grim-hearted the bait of war. He came now from the moor, under misty fells. Grendel walking, the wrath of God was on him. Foul thief, he purposed of the race of men someone to snare within that lofty hall. Under cloud he went to where he knew full well that house of wine was, hall of men with gold bright plated, not the first adventure that he had made, seeking for Hrothgar's home, never in days of life before, nor later with harder fortune guards in hall he found. He came now to the house, a man shaped, journeying of men's mirth shone. The door at once sprang back, barred with forged iron. When claws he laid on it, he wrenched then wide, baleful with raging heart, the gaping entrance of the house. Then swift on the bright patterned floor, the demon placed in angry mood he went, and from his eyes stood forth, most like the flame, unholy light. He in the house espied there many a man asleep, a throng of kinsmen side by side, a band of youthful knights. Then his heart laughed. He thought that he would sever, ere daylight came, dread slayer for each of these life from their flesh, since now such had hope. Hope had chance of feasting full. It was no longer doomed that he yet more might of the race of men devour beyond that night. There stern and strong the kinsmen of Hygelac watched how that foul thief with his fell clutches would now play his part, and that the slayer was not minded to delay, not he, but swiftly at the first turn seized a sleeping man, rending him unopposed, biting the bone joints, drinking blood from veins, great goblets gorging down. Quickly he took all of that lifeless thing to be his food, even feet and hands. Onward and nearer he stepped, seized then with hand the valiant-hearted man upon his bed. Against him the demon stretched his claw, and swiftly he laid hold on it, and with hate and heart he propped him on his arm. Straightway that master of evil deeds perceived that never had he met within this world and earth's four corners on any other man a mightier gripe of hand. In heart and soul he grew afraid, yet none the sooner could escape. His desire would haste away. He would too, hiding, flee, seeking the devil's throng. Not now were his dealings there, such as he ever before in the days of his life had found. Then the good knight, kinsman of Hygelac, remembered his words at evening. Upright he stood and grappled fast against him, fingers cracked. Out would the ogre go forth, strode the knight. The accursed thing would fain, could he have done so, go free afar, and thence flee away to hollows of the fens. In the fens, he felt the power of his fingers in his fierce foe's grasp. It was a woeful journey that the fell robber had to Heorot made. The royal hall rang on the Danes, dwellers in the town about on each bold. Heart there fell a ghastly fear. Wroth were they both, fierce rivals in the keeping of the house. The hall was full of noise. Great wonder was it then that house of wine endured their battling, so that it fell not to the ground. Fair dwelling upon earth, but stout was it smithied within, and without the bonds of iron cunningly contrived there. Where they fought in wrath was many a bench adorned with gold for the drinking of mead, cast from his place upon the floors. The tale tells. Never aforetime had the Scyldings' counselors foreseen that any among men could in any wise shatter it, its goodliness adorned with ivory, nor dismember it with craft, unless the embrace of fire should engulf it in swathing smoke. Clamor new arose ever and anon, dread fear came upon the northern Danes, upon each of those that from the wall heard the cries, the adversary of God singing his ghastly song. No chant of victory, the prisoner of hell, bewailing his grievous hurt. Fast was he held by that most strong of body's might in that day of men's life here. In no wise would that captain of men permit that deadly guest to go forth alive, nor did he account the days of his life of use to any man. There many a knight of Beowulf drew his ancient blade, wishing to defend the life of his lord and master and renowned prince. If so he might, they knew it not. Young warriors brave-hearted as they fought that fight, and on each side sought to hew the foe and pierce his vitals. That doer of evil none upon earth of swords of war would touch, not the most excellent of things of iron, not so, for he had laid a spell upon all victorious arms and upon every blade. On that day of this life on earth, unhappy was, fated to be the sending forth of his soul, and far was that alien spirit to fare into the realm of fiends. Now did he perceive, who aforetime had wrought the race of men many a grief of heart and wrong. He had a feud with God, that his body's might would not avail him, but the valiant kinsman of Hygelac had him by the arm. Hateful to each was the other's life, a grievous hurt of body that fierce slayer and dire now endured. A mighty wound was seen upon his shoulder. The sinews sprang apart, the joints of his bones burst. To Beowulf was vouchsafed triumph in battle. Thence now must Grendel flee stricken to death, to hide beneath the slopes of the fens, seeking his joyless haunts. Thereby the more surely did he know that the end of his life was come to pass, and the hours of his days were numbered. That deadly contest was over, and achieved was the desire of the Danes. In that hour had one come from afar, wise and stout of heart, purged the hall of Hrothgar and redeemed it from the malice of Grendel. He rejoiced in his deeds that night, and in the glory of his prowess. The chief of those Geatish men, had accomplished all his proud vaunt before the East Danes, and had healed, moreover, all the woe and tormenting sorrow that they had erewhile suffered and must of necessity endure. No little bitterness. Of this a clear token it was, when that warrior bold had set the hand, the arm, and shoulder beneath the widespread roof. There was all Grendel's clutching limb entire.